Hello, readers! Welcome back to Reading in the Middle, the show that drops you right into the heart of picture books and middle grade adventures. I'm your host, Anisha Jeffries, and today we're taking flight. Now, picture this. You're a small, quiet chickadee living in a peaceful village. Life is simple until the sky darkens with the wings of the fortress crows. Your home is under attack. Your friends are in danger, and a terrifying sorceress is hunting you down. That's Twig's reality, and running isn't enough. To survive, he's going to need courage, a little magic, and a team of allies that includes a cunning bard, a fearless warrior, and 2 tumblers, who's almost as much trouble as they solve. This is the Unraveling, the Counsel of Crows, a sweeping fantasy packed with bird martial arts, dangerous quests, and laugh out loud moments, and a hero who proves that even the smallest wings can spark the biggest change. It's written by Keith Ward, Karl Buechner, and Jeremy Mueller. And today I'm joined by Keith and Jeremy to talk about how this epic adventure took flight, the secrets of building the Woodland Realm, and why they believe Twig's story will stay with you long after the final page. So, let's get started. Who you are, and what made you say, yes, let's write a fantasy book where birds battle crows with swords?
I'm Keith and this is Jeremy. And as you can see, we're missing Karl this afternoon. He's out on tour in Europe through the end of the month with a couple of his bands. So he's been playing with Earth Crisis and he just joined up with Freya. So he'll be on tour through the end of the month. So you just get the 2 of us today, but he sends his best wishes and his regards. And the truth is the story started with a 10-page short that Karl wrote probably 20 years ago. And Jeremy and I were friends, and I didn't really know Karl. And Jeremy introduced me to Karl, and Jeremy was like, I really want to write a story. And I was like, me too. And then I met Karl, and Karl gave us this 10-page short about a couple of squirrels falling in love or something. And so we read through that, and I don't know about you, but I was kind of expecting to write like so when we initially got together, the idea was, Karl and I were talking, and I was like, I really want to write a story. And I called Keith, and I was like, hey, I really want to write a story, but we don't know how. I don't know how. Would you want to help or work on it? And Keith said yes. Karl said yes. And Karl and I originally had this one piece that we were working on, and it was more of a CIA kind of thing, something completely different. So that's what I told Keith that we were potentially going to be working on. And then when we got into the room, Karl pulled out these notebooks and he was like, I really love this story. I think we could do something with this. Keith read it and was like, yeah, I'm all in, if we do this, I'm definitely all in. And it took a little more convincing for me because I had it in my mind. I wanted to write, this little different thing. Keith's like, I really think this thing has got legs. And then and I was like, you know what, let's do it. And here we are, almost 10 years later. Yeah. And it's been a world of fun. It really has. It just immersing ourselves in learning and growing together. And, it's been so much fun.
I can tell after reading it, and for our listeners who haven't yet cracked open your book, because it did debut in May of this year, correct?
Yeah, it's still very new. So we did a really short printed hardcover, like an autograph edition, and there might be a couple of copies or it's sold out. That's just through the publisher at Third World Studios. So if they're there, you can find them there. And then otherwise, the soft cover came out on May 20th, and that's just available anywhere books are sold. You can go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever you like to grab. And it'll be sitting there waiting for you. But yeah, so we're real excited because on July 15th, just the day after this interview, we have our audio copy read by Peter Bradbury, comes out through recorded books. So that'll also be available if you're a listener. And rather than a page turner, you can tune in to 6 hours and 50 minutes of the Unraveling from the good folks over at Recorded Books. And that'll be available at Apple and Audible and anywhere else you get your audiobooks. So we're super excited to be so fortunate to be able to work with a great publisher and our distributor, Simon & Schuster, and they've been terrific. And then also now with Recorded Books, yeah, we're having a ton of fun with this. So yeah, we hope people will pick it up and get into an adventure that I don't think any of us saw coming 10 years ago. But now that we're here, yeah, we're excited. We're about 150 pages into book 2, and we'll have that ready for you come Earth Day of next year. So we're ready to go.
Woo! That's awesome. Now, for our listeners who haven't cracked open the Unraveling yet, can you give us your best 30-second pitch? Go.
Sure, I'll tell you what I think about it. And it's that humans are gone, but life carries on. And in our story, we find out that human beings have been as rough on the environment as we have suspected for all these years. And eventually we become extinct through a series of circumstances with our animal characters. And we are gone and never to return. There's not the one good one. There's not the young kid who comes back and gives us hope. But life and the problems of life persist through these animals that develop culture and care and love and wrestle with all the major things that we've wrestled with, up to and including, are we capable of forgiving the most egregious sins committed against us? All in all, it's just a fun fantasy story, adventure story.
Oh, that's awesome. And it is. It's very much fun. It's dangerous quests, big fields,
Yes.
and chaos. Now, in the story, Twig isn't your typical fantasy hero. He's scared. He doubts himself. And he really rather not lead a revolution. What inspired his journey, and why is he the hero kids need right now?
I don't know about everybody, but I suspect that there is a reluctance in all of us to accept the things that we must do over the things that we wish to do, right? And no matter your size, that we're all capable of great things. We just have to look inward and really just push forward and kind of grind it out. That's this, for me at least, when we decided to make Twig, a black cat chickadee, a very, very small bird. We thought it was cool because, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be a gigantic muscular hero. It can be the heroes in all of us or any of us.
Yes.
And Twig lives in a very closed community. He's very similar to maybe Amish or Mennonite, someone who's been closed off to the knowing about how the bigger world around him is working with the fortress crows and the wars at hand. But that for him isn't firsthand information until all of a sudden his hometown is attacked. And it's because the queen of this realm, beautiful, smart, treacherous, is searching for him for reasons that he's not fully aware of. And it's really, I think, only at the very end of the book that you get a nod as to exactly to who Twig is becoming and who will become over the next 2 books.
Oh, I'm so excited. This is a trilogy, and it's something like this will get our listeners, because our listeners are voracious reader, and this is right up their alley. So, okay, let's talk tumblers. The sugar gliders are unhinged in the best way,
Yeah.
right? So who came up with them, and were they always this chaotic?
I think we all kind of came up with them. But we didn't really know at first what their personalities really were going to be like. And I know initially we thought maybe, the angel and the demon on the shoulders, have one good and one, chaotic, and one say, do the right thing. The other say, no, do it. But then I can't remember which one of us it was. Can't remember most of that stuff anymore, but someone decided, well, what if they're both?
equally as chaotic. And that idea, when we thought of that, I immediately thought of my daughters, and just and in the best way.
Yeah.
They're both very, very loving, very loyal, but also very fierce. And that's where a lot of their personality comes from.
Yeah, we just thought we couldn't stop laughing at the idea that the only advice that poor Boswell would get from these two very unexpected friends would just be forever pushing him in the direction of danger, and also very small characters, but
Yeah.
terribly ferocious.
Yes, yes. But they were really developed and just fun characters in your stories. And this world, it has everything, right? Secret powers, storm attacks, creepy ruins, all of that. Even a scarecrow who teaches martial arts. What's one part of Woodland Realm that you had the most fun creating?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I think the most fun that I had, there's a chapter, it's probably mid or three quarters of the way through the book. It's titled The Mad Captain of Elderberry Pond.
Yeah.
And in it, you meet a very like business oriented, like Southern slanged heron who's kind of like trying to cheat the world for gold. And then the mad captain of Elderberry Pond who sails on, there's an illustration in the book, and he sails on an old biped or human miniature golf pirate ship. And on his shoulder, there's a dead parakeet that's been dead for a long time. But he takes his orders from Admiral Feathers and gets into this whole ordeal with our characters and then this dead parrot to whom he like is just a servant. And so I don't think I ever laughed harder in my life than we were pushing through that chapter and watching our characters try to reconcile what's going on with this. And then also, but by the time you get to the end, it really, I think, also drives the story forward in an interesting way. But yeah, that for me was the moment where I was like, this world is really just wonderfully on fire with some interesting characters, to say the least.
I think for me it would be when you meet Randall, the possum prince. That was a lot of fun to write because for me it was when we were writing him, it was like going back to being that teenager and just kind of having that angst and wanting to be like a little gothic, and then the reality of his mom flipping the door open and telling him it's time for cricket poppers. And then just writing the family scene and the songs. That was a fun chapter.
That scene with Randall is really fun because when we open on him, he's a borderline Shakespearean villain, just cloaked in darkness, and everyone's got a little shiver down their spine. And then, yes, his mom opens the basement door essentially and just spoils the whole thing to let us know he's like an adult son living at home. His dad's disappointed with him. It might have been a little bit of a confession. I'm not sure.
But so Jeremy, you said middle grade books shaped who you are. What were your favorites growing up, and how did they sneak their way into this story?
So I think for me, like one of my favorite stories growing up, middle grade stories, is Summer of the Monkeys, and also Where the Red Fern Grows. But and I read a lot. I think the way that for me it was just the visceral storytelling. I've always been captivated by like trying to be able to write so that the reader doesn't have to do that much work, if that makes sense. Like it's write it so that you can smell it, see it, taste it, hear it. And that style of writing has always captivated me, and also something with a little bit of heart. When I read something, unless I'm reading like something that's like a little bit on the horror side or whatever, I want to be moved. And that's for me that was my goal. I know, like that was I think the goal of the team, like collectively. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's reading your book. I was thinking, because when I was reading some reviews, it was saying, if you like Watership Down, which I love, you know, um, it reminds me of that because it's like coming into that world,
Yeah.
I was right in there. So, but yeah, and then Keith, you've written other genres before. So, what pulled you into middle grade, and what part of Twig's story feels most personal to you?
So it's funny because I actually, when I started, I've written throughout middle school and high school, just the way kids write. And then late at high school, I started writing stand-up comedy. And then in undergraduate school, I really got into performing in the greater Philadelphia area. I took a little time off, and then after a breakup, I ended up being agented and did some work through the Northeast and really did a lot of stand-up. And then got into my own personal writing, met with Jeremy and Karl, and since have ghost written a project. We're working together on a new adult fiction project together on the side of the Unraveling. And I think the character who resonates the most with me in this story, and I think if Karl was here, he'd probably bang this drum too, is Boswell. The traveling performer who wants to be the big act and is still trying to find his way. And I think for he and I both was a real confession of what it means to pick up the mic and to do the show, to do the set, and hope for more to come on the other end and keep working until you find it. And so for me, I think the character who really resonates the most with me is probably Boswell. But I think you see some of that trepidation in Twig too, that reluctance to pick up the staff, even when he struggles to take the blanket in the opening scene, right, where he's offered this human relic and he's like, oh, the word feels weird out of his beak, right? That to me is also that reluctance, I think, is in a lot of our characters, but also their desire to be more. And I hope that people will find that in themselves too, because it is worth fighting for. I promise you.
It is so much fun. Listeners, I'm telling you, you will have so much fun. You won't want the book to end. And when it ends, you'll be waiting for the second book, too. Then there's so much going on beneath the feathers. This book explores justice, truth, and fighting for your home. Why did these ideas matter to you? And how did you all keep it feeling fun and not preachy?
That was one of the biggest, that was honestly probably one of the hardest things, but also it was hard, but it also kind of came natural to us. Keegan Hoon, who kind of helped us along the way as far as with a lot of the next steps after we were done writing. One of the greatest compliments we got from him was saying, it sends a message, but it's not in your face. For me, growing up, and my parents will attest to this, if you told me to do something, I wasn't going to do it. So I never liked when I felt like I was being preached to. That's why I think, when you watch The Secret of Nim, The Secret of Nim for me was when I was younger, it was a fun cartoon. It wasn't until I was older, until I started kind of reading into and understanding some of what they were talking about. And I always thought, I want to do something like that, because I feel like if you do get too preachy, it will push people away,
Right.
Yeah. And for the great 19th century philosophy folks in your audience, I have a degree in the subject matter. And so much of it is contingent on asking the questions of Socrates and Aristotle and Plato. And so when we were inventing Scarecrow's character, it felt really important to me, and eventually I think to the entire team, for him to guide through questions and never to guide through a sense of knowing. And so that really became, as much as we wanted to have an open conversation about earth and animal rights and how can we be better to our environment and how can we be one of many species offering care to and for each other, we also wanted to be a story that was ultimately about love and compassion and choosing the thing that makes us better as a group. And that was a challenge. When we finally struck that nerve for the first time, we were on our fifth rewrite of chapter 1, and all of a sudden it clicked so hard, but then everything else kind of fell into place. And yeah, we're so happy that you had that same takeaway, because for us it was important to ask the question with love and kindness, and not to ask you to become what we are, because the three of us, we don't always see eye to eye either. Yeah. Right? Karl's a a vegan animal rights activist for 30 years with his bands and, good friends with that community. Jeremy and I, we do it our way. And so I think that balance really was in the room. We learned to love each other. And I think we tried to share that in the book so that you can find a bond over commonality rather than looking for moments of dissent to wreck your Thanksgiving table. I've had enough of that. I don't know about you.
No, I totally agree. And then since all three of you are collaborating, you want to have your own voice in the story, but you don't want one voice to stand out.
That's a really good question too. There, but I think I understand. Well, your question kind of leads to how did three people create a voice?
Right.
And for us, that was very much. I think Jeremy invented the phrase three filter process. So maybe just share that part of it.
Yeah. So. And that did take a little bit. It was part of the learning process. So I think it was just what we decided to do is, like, when we get into the room together, when we write, we always leave the room, I should say, like with an idea. All right. So this is where we're going to go next.
Yes.
So we're all going to think about it. One of us is going to write something. And then when we come back to the room, or then that once that person is done, it's handed off to the next person. And then whoever that is will take that, filter through it, add his, his spin to it and whatever. And then but we always keep the original. And then that then goes on to the final person. And then when we get into the room the following week, we sit down and we read it. Make any adjustments that we need to make. And then when we all give a thumbs up, we move on to the next thing.
So a lot of kids want to write their own books or maybe collaborate with a friend. What advice would you give a young team of co-authors out there dreaming up their own magical world?
Oh, such a good question. So the first thing I would say is start writing your worlds. I meet so many people who are like, I have a story in my head, and that's a great place for a story to start. But most stories are still on paper, or on a computer, or on an audio recording. And so you got to get that story onto something in the medium of your choice, but write it. And then, I don't know, Jerry, you want to give, there's something to be said about, thinking about something and then actually visually seeing it on a computer screen or on paper. I know that I think better when I see it. So when you get it down, then you can start working the kinks out. The other thing I was going to say, and I started to say earlier, was, I wish I could go back in time and push, my young self to have the confidence just to do it. I was like that. I always had these ideas and I would dabble a little bit, but I would never share it with anybody. And I can't even remember half the stuff that I did. And I can only imagine what might have come from some of that stuff had I just had the confidence just to share it. Because, the whole reason for art is to share it. And if you hide behind something, like the world doesn't get to see it. And, also just have the confidence in knowing that, like, not everybody's going to be into what you're doing, and that's okay. Getting that constructive criticism and, like, getting that feedback will only make you better. And if you can look at it from that angle, you will be a better writer and person for it. Don't live in fear, I guess. Yeah, and share it. Yeah, share it wide and far and find your tribe, because there are people who will rally to it with you. And I think that's the one thing that we found is, not everybody's a huge fan of everything that we do, but I think when you do it honestly and you do it bravely, boy, there's someone out there who wants to read and share with you. And that to us has been just such a remarkable reward too, I think. Well, also, the other thing about having, like, collaborating with other people is getting that instant feedback. There's a lot of times, and Keith has said this before, like, where one of us might come in with this great idea that we thought about weekend or, throughout the week. And we're like, oh my God, this is going to hit hard. The guys are going to love this. I can already envision, where this is going to go. And then you read it to the room and the others who are like, no,
I don't like that. And it's kind of, it's kind of nice having that instant feedback,
Yeah, that for me is it's one of the greatest reasons to collaborate is you're never isolated alone waiting for your editor to give you notes. You have this sounding board where you can have the best idea come forth a lot quicker. And it also, and for those of you that get into writing professionally or semi-professionally, and it also really decreases how much your editor needs to do. Yeah, sometimes it decreases the bill. So too. Yeah.
And that is great because, you have someone to bounce ideas off of and that's or say, yeah, that works, or no, that doesn't work. And it's instantaneous. And that is a good thing too.
It's also inspiring. Like when I work with Keith and Karl, Karl has been a lyricist, for 30 plus years. He's just a natural writer, and so is Keith, with his comedy bits, and just naturally just has that gift. So when I sit and write with them, I'm always in awe. But it also motivates me to be better, and just to not slack off or whatever. I'm like, oh, they'll read something and I'm like, wow, so it is the green one.
Yeah, see, that's the next question I was going to ask you both, and I wanted you to be honest. And I was going to ask you, what's one moment in the book that made you go, whoa, I can't believe we wrote that?
Oh, that's a hard one. For me, it was the end of the book. Yeah. It was actually the end of the book and I don't want to give anything away, and I won't. But when we went back and read it, and because when you write, you're writing chapters, or you might be writing paragraphs at a time, and it's kind of broken out, kind of like how someone would make a movie. When we write, sometimes it's on a sequence. Like this might be at the end, or this, but it wasn't until we actually did the full read through that I actually got goosebumps, and I was like, I can't believe we wrote that. And I'll be honest with you, I would just constantly question, whenever somebody's like, this is really good, I'm like, are you just saying that because you know me, or because I feel like it's really, really good, but I just so it's it was very difficult. But if I'm going to go back to a specific moment within the book, that is hard. There's so many of them. I honestly, I love the attack on Sky Village. When we described the sort of canopy dome thing. Yeah, thank you. I remember writing that and having so much fun with the way they did the measurements and all that stuff. And then the song Sir Fountain's Day. Having that in there, and I just remember, and then running the sequence between Trayton, when he comes in and he goes after the king, that was a lot of fun. But I'll tell you, the place where I think I got pushed almost to the breaking point creatively is we were in a late revision rewrite of chapter 1. And Karl said something to the effect of, wouldn't it be cool if they could just have a puppet show on the wall or something behind him the whole time? And I remember thinking a bunch of things that I can't say in front of your audience, but it was a tapestry of just terrible things I wanted to say to Karl. But I left the room that night. I'll mind you, it was probably after the 8th or 9th, right? So he has this idea and he knows, and so I go home, I'm stewing. And I get up the next morning, and the morning after that, I'm still stewing. And I think it was the third morning, I went back in and I found a way to make that hand puppet show against a lantern, where he basically gives you
3/4 of a page introduction to our world, the death of dinosaurs, the death of humans, and then here we are. And all of a sudden, I remember reading into the room, and everyone was like, "That's awesome." And I remember feeling like something came out of me and all of us in that moment that was way bigger than anything I'd ever expected. And it was humbling. Like Karl's idea, my execution, Jeremy's revision, and talk about a 3-filtered process. Like chapter 1 in so many ways is such a great establishment of that world. And that sequence for me was like, I didn't know I was capable of that. I didn't know we were capable of that.
But also, not to drag this question on, but we got to hear a clip of the audiobook last week. So hearing Peter Bradbury read the first chapter, that was a crowning moment. Like, it was just, I remember I went up into my bedroom and I was by myself and I just sat down. And if I'm being honest, I almost wanted to cry. I was like, wow, hearing this man with such a rich voice, and he just did it so well, to hear the words that we wrote just roll off of his tongue. You know, I just had a whole, it gave it a whole new life for me.
Also, to come back to an earlier question and kind of tie this part up a little bit, you know, we're not kidding when we say 5, 6, 7, 9 revisions. And one of the other sort of mottos of the room is we love to fail and we love to fail fast. And that's one of my biggest points of encouragement to anyone who's writing is don't ever be afraid to fail. You hang that on your fridge and then you get better. And then you fail again, you get better again, because that fail faster mindset, I'm telling you, it's golden once you accept it.
Man, that's good advice. Absolutely correct. It is okay, because everything isn't always perfect, or it comes out, awesome.
Yeah,
first time around.
you have to have the drive, the will, and just, and the fortitude, honestly, honestly, create for creative's sake. This world needs more original content.
It sure does. And I know for a fact that this book is original. It's one of a kind. It's awesome. It's humorous. It has heart. It's just it's so good. It's just absolutely just fabulous. I was entranced. Like I said, I hated for it to end.
Well, if it makes you feel any better or worse, our first draft is about 500 pages. We found out that fifth grade doesn't do that. So we put a lot right there for the next book for you. But I hope you'll keep enjoying.
Oh, I will. And wait a sec. What about Harry Potter? Come on now.
I know, but if you go back to book 1, even she couldn't pull it off. Now, I'm sure she got about 5, 6, and 7. She could do whatever she wanted. Maybe one day we'll be there.
Oh, you will be. You will be there.
Oh, thank you. And you asked a question earlier too about what is one of your favorite chapters. One of my favorite chapters that we wrote, and I actually give it away, but it will be in book 2. It was one of the chapters that we decided to move to the next book, and I can't wait for you to read it.
Oh, it has the most glorious of chapters.
Yeah, it really does.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait. And that's next year, Earth Day.
Yeah, not that year.
Okay, well, time does go fast, so I can't wait.
I've been there.
Now, I do have a rapid fire round that I do with all of my authors, and it's just a lightning round. Whatever comes to your mind. You guys can take turns. But I'm just gonna ask you some questions, and whatever comes to your mind, just answer. So here we go.
Not even.
Wings or swords?
Sword. Wings or swords.
Writing snack of choice.
For me, cashews.
Oh, cashews. Yeah, he's right.
Who's up?
Salted and roasted, preferably. Yes.
Creepiest creature you created.
The barber. Oh. Creepiest creature?
Creepiest? No, creepiest.
Yeah. Far away, Barnabas.
Yes.
Please, I love it.
Favorite fantasy book growing up? I think you mentioned this already. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, Lord of the Rings. I wanted to be Lord of the Rings, but I fell so hard for the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Oh, yes.
I fell so hard, like deep in love. Oh my god.
I actually like pretended like my grandmother's closet was the wardrobe. It was so deep that I just fantasized about it, but keep going into Narnia. Oh, wow.
Dude, I actually read the Springtime letters with flashlight in my grandmother's closet.
Man, I wanted that to be true. So, which characters in the Unraveling would make the best TikTok account?
Oh, Ethan, yeah. Hands down, Ethan, and then if I did that, Hashmar. And then, yeah, that's if Hashmar totally would have this dark goth vibe. Do really well with them topic scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Triton wouldn't be caught dead with the TikTok account. No, they'd be like these kids.
That would be insane. And then my last question, now this might be a hard one, but bear with me. So let's play fantasy casting. If The Unraveling became an animated series, who's voicing Twig? Or would one of you want the role?
Ooh. I mean, yeah, of course we want the role, but no one is going to cast us. Yeah. You know what? Honestly, first time I'm ever saying this. Okay, let's hear it. It's a day.
Oh, okay.
I think you would crush.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that would be great. Oh, and keep me on too.
I mean, that's a great.
Boy, that's a because it's gonna happen. I'm just gonna throw it out there. It's gonna happen. It's going to happen.
I hope so.
Definitely. Goodness. Oh, well,
I won that one. Jeremy got shiny. I got stuff.
you see? Yep.
Now I'm thinking of it like him, but I also am dating myself because I'm like in my mind I'm like coming up with all this stuff. No, that would work.
You never know. You never know. So guys, wow. Thank you for being here today. And listeners, you can grab a copy of The Unraveling, The Counsel of Crows, wherever books are sold, especially your independent bookstores and your local libraries. It's so important to grab it. And also ebooks too, and audiobooks. That's right. July 15th, grab a listen, because audiobooks, they are considered reading. Just want to throw that out there.
I know. I read or listen to it.
Yes, me too. And and I always feel the better because I'm always, doing extra things while I'm listening to an audiobook.
Right.
So,
well, thank you so much for having us. This has been a great interview.
Oh,
It was a lot of fun. You have great questions.
Thank you. Yes. Oh, you're very welcome, guys. Thank you. And thank you so much. And I will tell you this. Listeners, you will not be disappointed. You will not. Get that copy. You're going to love it. You're going to, we mentioned Lord of the Rings. We mentioned The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. This is on that level. So please grab that book. And thank you both.
Thank you.
And that's our journey through the Woodland Realm. Huge thanks to Keith Ward and Jeremy Mueller for joining me today, and to their co-author, Karl Buechner, for bringing us a story that's as fierce as it is heartfelt. But Unraveling, The Counsel of Crows, is much more than just an adventure. It's about friendship, courage, standing up when it matters most, and believing that even the smallest voice or the smallest set of wings can make a difference. You can find The Unraveling wherever books are sold, especially your independent bookstores and your libraries, and of course, audiobooks. And trust me, once you meet Twig, the bard, the warrior, and those chaotic tumblers who won't want to leave their world. I know I didn't. Until next time, I'm Anisha Jeffries, reminding you to keep turning pages, keep listening, keep finding heroes in unexpected places, and of course, keep reading in the middle.